everyone a nice reminder of what we are and who we're doing here.
Yeah. What happened to you? That was really good take.
What we are and
what we are, who we do. Welcome to the Gospel Truth. I'm Dean.
And I'm Audrey. And today we celebrate the fourth Sunday in Ordinary Time. And today we will be focusing on the theme of listening.
Huh?
Listening.
Huh?
Listening.
Oh, listening.
Yes. But before we get into that, you want to just run what we do usually every week and remind everyone what we're doing here and who we are?
Of course. So the Gospel Truth is where Audrey and I share our thoughts about the Word, the faith happening in the church. The goal is to help us understand our own faith a little bit better, but also you as the viewers can hopefully get something out of it as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And after we do that, we dive into this week's readings.
So shall we just get right into it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So the readings from the fourth Sunday of Ordinary Time, as Audrey mentioned, are all about listening. In the first reading from the book of Deuteronomy, you got Moses. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've talked about Moses at all since we started this. And this is our first mention of Moses.
True. Yeah.
And Moses is basically saying, look, you asked for a prophet. God gave you one. I am that prophet. Mm-hmm. And he's also saying, and if anyone doesn't listen to me, or if anyone tries to pretend they're a prophet, God's not going to like that.
Ooh, yeah, Old Testament God up in here. Mm-hmm. He's scary.
Yep. The responsorial psalm. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts.
Yeah,
I haven't sung in a while. I didn't know what the Psalms were.
Yeah.
But I think the Psalm speaks for itself. Yeah. If you hear God, listen. The second reading is interesting. It's a reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. And he's basically saying be free of anxiety and adhere to God without distraction. Mm-hmm. He also does some interesting parallel. I don't know what he's doing here, but he's basically saying that an unmarried man is anxious about God, whereas a married man is anxious about his wife, and the wife will be anxious about God, but a married wife, an unmarried person, it's kind of weird here. But he's basically saying, be free of anxiety, listen to God. Mm-hmm. And then the gospel, you see Jesus, and he starts teaching, and people are like, "Who's this guy?"
Who are you?
Yeah.
Teaching, he ain't got no authority.
Yeah.
And then, while he's teaching, he straight up exorcises a demon. And he's like, whoa, this guy has authority. We should probably listen to him. And so
he shut him up real quick.
That is your TLDR for the Gospels.
That was very lively.
Yeah.
But again, we have this theme building up based on the readings, right? Around listening, where we hear it in the readings, and there's a lot of listening to authoritative figures.
Yeah, and I think the readings are kind of this cautionary tale about who we choose to listen to, because there are a lot of people that claim to be authorities. Mm-hmm. Subject experts.
Yeah, like who in today's world?
We think about people that say that they're smarter than our scientists and that you don't need to be wearing masks.
Yeah.
I am the smart. I am the smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Or that they know which stock is going to be the next stock that goes to the moon.
Yeah.
GameStop. Right? But there are so many figures of authority out there that probably don't actually deserve the authority that they're placing on themselves.
Exactly. And so I think one takeaway here is that not only are we being called to listen and listen for God's voice in these authoritative figures, but it's an overall call to be more discerning and to weed out the noise and really try and listen, and for that voice you need to listen to, right? Who do you see in your life as an authority that deserves your attention, right? I mean, we have teachers, parents,
our bosses,
exactly, our partners.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, these are all authorities in our lives, and it's completely fair and right. But who is the ultimate authority at the end of the day?
What a good question.
I wonder
Who is the ultimate authority?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been listening to us for the past 13 episodes, you probably know where we're going with this.
Yeah, it's
God.
Groundbreaking.
Surprise, surprise.
Shocking.
Right? Like God is the ultimate authority.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because God kind of sort of is that center again, right? Like as Audrey was saying, we're being pulled in so many different directions, so many different voices. And, we come back every Sunday and we get reminded that God is the authority.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's really at the end of the day, the top of the food chain
and that
of authority.
consistent voice that will always be there.
Yeah.
Whether you hear him or not.
Yes.
And I think this is this week. I think we should really challenge ourselves not only to hear his voice, but to also listen.
Challenge accepted.
I think there's a big difference between hearing someone and listening to someone, and it's something that I love to pull out when we have our little arguments.
We have our arguments.
You have got to listen.
That I feel like you can hear me, but are you really listening to what I'm trying to say? And so, and I think we all feel like that in a lot of ways when we're frustrated when someone doesn't hear us or listen to us. So we need to also understand that God could be on the receiving end of that. How often do we find ourselves praying to God, asking for, his help and his blessings? We thank him and everything, but a lot of the times we're also asking for him to pray, or we're asking for him to answer our prayers. We pray and then we call it a day and move on with the rest of our day, I'm sure. But do we take the time to actually sit down, meditate, and reflect and give him a chance to respond and listen to him?
Yeah, that was one of my New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to meditate more because I want to listen to God more. And I'll tell you right now, I haven't really been doing that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's sort of a reminder to me, and maybe something that you might benefit from, is that meditation, in a lot of ways, is our chance to listen to what God is telling us. Because as Audrey said, we pray, right? We do it, but we don't often listen to what God is telling us. And, the reality is, God's not going to manifest himself. His voice isn't going to manifest himself as this booming voice from the heavens, or you're not actually going to necessarily hear him physically.
Yeah.
But he might actually show up in different ways.
Yeah, he can show up in different ways. Back episode 1.
Yeah, really early on.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But I talk about praying to God for a miracle. My dad passed away almost a year ago to cancer, and obviously I was praying for this miracle, right? That can he be healed, and just can we go back to the way life was? And so I took a lot of time to reflect on my commute to the hospital every day, and to really listen to what God was. How is God answering my plea to heal my dad? And though I didn't get the miracle, or he didn't answer my prayers in the way I had hoped for, it doesn't mean he wasn't listening and he didn't do something else instead. And the way I chose to see that was that he just blessed us with more time. My dad was supposed to not, he only had a couple months, but he made it for over, I think a good 6-7 months or something, way longer than the doctors had anticipated. And that is my interpretation of God listening. Or me listening to God and seeing how he answered my prayers.
Yeah.
And I got to that conclusion every day, on my commute to the hospital on BART. So I think that's just one example. I think, you were talking earlier before we started filming that, it can also come in the shape and form of a feeling that you get, right?
Yeah, it's not always going to be a voice. Sometimes there's just this overwhelming sense of calm that you might feel. Maybe you're praying to God for guidance. Should I take this job or that job? Or what should I do to help my children out? Or how should I, help me to become more patient with my partner, right? I'm sure Audrey prays for that a lot, right? But there's this overwhelming sense of calm, or this overwhelming feeling that you get inside you, you know what, I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
That might be God speaking to you and you actually hearing him and listening to him.
Yeah.
And so, it's not always going to be this big thing.
No, it's not. But I think we could just do a little better, just though we might not kind of get it, or it's hard to sit there and listen for something, but the least we can do is try, right? So our challenge to all of you out there and ourselves is to after every prayer, after you say your prayer and your requests and everything, just take a beat before getting on with your day and really listen and meditate and reflect on what you're asking for, and to see how God is speaking and responding to you. And I think hopefully we can just, moving forward from that, make a habit out of it, and just remember to listen. It's a two-way. Every relationship is a two-way street, right? And our relationship with God is no different. He deserves to be not only heard but also listened to.
I like that.
Yeah.
Listen.
What?
Listen.
Yes, listen. But with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. And we'll catch everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.
Brings us to the ultimate authority.
Yeah.
Our boy. G-O-D?
God.
You down with G-O-D? Yeah, you know me.